But we have to be mindful for the fact that as we prepared for Category 4 Hurricane Harvey, as it rapidly intensified throughout that Thursday and Friday evening, is that our partners to the south, Rockport area, really took on the brunt of a Category 4 hurricane. What we saw here in Victoria was the wind load environment of a Category 1. There were some pocketed areas with a Category 2 wind load, the Barge Canal, far western side of our community. But we have to put that in perspective for ourselves, because we don't want people to have a false sense of complacency to say, well, I rode out Category 4 Hurricane Harvey.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Town Talk. And today we've got some pretty cool people here in the room. They're going to make it an extra fun episode for us today. And you've got some familiar faces, one of which used to work with me. Hey,
how's it going?
I'm just kidding. I had to go straight there.
Sorry, we had a skewer.
Yeah.
I know, it's okay. Hey, we said this
we
before.
Get to work together.
We do. And at the end of the day, we're all sharing resources for the same community at the end of the day. So that's cool.
Yep.
Because
I'm borrowed.
Yeah,
we learn around.
I don't like saying I'm borrowed. I
In
don't know
emergencies.
how saying that, but it was an easy transition. And the fact that I could still work with such great people on both sides of it was the selling point from Rick.
I love it. Well, if you're wondering who these folks are, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
I'm Laura Moe. I'm the Public Safety Communications Coordinator for Victoria County.
What's you?
Okay. Jenna Bonda. I'm the Deputy Emergency Management Coordinator for Victoria.
Rick McBrayer, Emergency Management Coordinator for Victoria.
AKA coolest people in Victoria. Just saying.
I was
We
going to
let
let you say it.
You were being very demure.
Very mindful.
Very mindful.
Yes.
Love it.
I was waiting for it.
Oh, man. I love it. We're going to have a good time, y'all. Well, welcome to the Town Talk podcast. It's long overdue. And what better time than right now? Because we're in the height of hurricane season, right?
Yep.
We are.
So people tend to think of you guys for hurricane preparedness. But y'all are right now kind of doing a campaign on general, overall preparedness for any emergency, right?
Yep.
And so, in fact, we've seen quite a few, and particularly one we're going to talk about a little bit later in Texas, and how that's even affecting legislation.
Right.
And that I hadn't quite seen before. So we'll talk about that. But first, tell us what our local Victoria Office of Emergency Management does. And fun fact, it is a city-county joint operation service.
Yep.
So
It is.
Rick,
I'll go
pick
first.
us up.
Victoria Office of Emergency Management is, like you just mentioned, a combined emergency management office for the city and the county. It's a dual shared. Our responsibilities generate out of some presidential directives that came out of the early 2000s after September 11th. Most important thing is that we're not in command of anything. We're a coordinating body. Jen and I and Lauren and the rest of the team, fantastic team that we have there, emergency management, are there as coordinating folks. We bring all of the operational people into one place and say, how do we get back to where we were before the major events started occurring?
Yeah.
And so we're just a coordinating body. And it's so important for us to make sure that we surround ourselves with those subject matter experts to really get them involved and say, what's our best management practice plan that we can put into play right now and get us through this response best we can, and even into recovery. And so it's a whole cycle we deal with. But it's been an ongoing effort. I've been there since the early 2000s, 2007, I guess it was. And have really built out the team that we have now, and been very proud of, obviously, the people to work with and work for.
Yeah, you should be. Very proud of you guys representing Victoria, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Well, cool. All right. So you're talking about OEM. What are some of the ways that you guys put y'all's services into action? Just to give some examples. I mean, I know you guys, always do some presentations at Citizens Academy. And you give that little 5-minute video that describes, we put the people here need to talk to these people here, and we try and bring the resources to the team in any crisis. So do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So it's definitely an all hazards approach, or that's kind of what we call it. So it really just depends on the nature of the incident or the thing that's taking place. To really kind of not stealing Rick's thunder, but kind of in the same line of thinking is we're there to coordinate. We know that each different group that comes together in an emergency or crisis, an incident, you name it, they may not all speak the same language on a day in and day out basis, where law enforcement officers are doing an entirely different job. Maybe they will coordinate with fire and EMS or public works or you name it throughout, public health, whenever they're working on a day in and day out basis. But when it comes to those higher level, higher criticality events, that's when you really have to pull people in and be able to kind of help them all speak the same language, pull the wagon in the same direction. And so some of the things that we'll get ourselves involved in, because it's where that coordinating effort really comes into play. Hurricanes, I know we kind of already mentioned that, to major accidents, aircraft accidents, if you will.
And that happened.
Yeah, in the last year.
Right.
But that is just where we come in. Like Rick mentioned, we're not in command of anything. We get very deeply ingrained in what all of these different players are doing. But we're not there to tell anybody, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. We're kind of helping them to step through that process.
Right.
And we try to take on some of those elements of, have you thought about this? While they're working through maybe a very law enforcement heavy piece, or a very EMS or pre-hospital driven piece,
Right.
we're really trying to think through, we're going to be out here for 12 to 24 hours
what's the next step?
consistently.
Right.
How are we going to feed the responders that are out here? How are we going to make sure that we're getting our communications folks involved and make sure that they have what they need to be able to not promote, but
Share the information.
share the information with the community, because they deserve that, and that's our duty.
Of us.
Yeah, and it's an expectation. Making sure that all those considerations are met while our responding agencies have the ability to do their job and still be able to maintain some continuity with what they're doing, and not have to stop and think, oh, communications. Oh,
Right.
how am I going to feed my responders? Oh, do we have porta potties out here? Because it's not like...
And never lose their authority to do their job.
Yes. And
That's important.
that's what we're there to do, is to kind of help them fill those gaps, but also make sure that they are communicating up, in, and out.
We have a sign in the EOC that says, what do I know and who needs to know it?
Yep.
And that's goes across all the spectrums.
Yes.
And y'all help fill that void for sure.
I
Absolutely.
think Jen and I both have probably 4,000 or 5,000 contact names and numbers in our phone.
Wow.
We pretty much, we try to know everyone we need to know.
Right.
Well, and sharing the resources too, right? Like that was one big thing I've seen throughout the coordination, that not only are they speaking the same language and, doing the continuity, but, if one agency, I don't want to say lacks, but if is missing an 18-wheeler, right? And we need a central command, it's y'all have helped bring that, help bring that together. I was going back to the airplane crash in December when I was in.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
But first,
But yeah,
to your point.
so that was, just bringing those resources together too.
Yeah, definitely providing the
things move
resources
forward.
needed. Y'all were a resource here in the recent boil water notices, and we have a whole episode for that. So in case you're listening and you want to learn more, check it out, freetx.gov/water. But we won't talk about that because that was primarily information sharing, right? A JIC was not activated. JIC is Joint Information Center. Look at you. EOC was not activated. Hey, 6 years in, I better know that by now. But coming back to the framework, it sounds like, Jenna, you're describing, it's like a framework. It's almost like the National Incident Management System with their for that very
Fourth of the National Response
NIMS.
Framework. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that helps us to kind of guide through kind of like what me and my specific operation, to y'all's point, in communications is we have a checklist, things we need to consider.
Sure.
Right. And at the end of the day, we follow policy, we follow leadership and management, and the situation is always ever evolving. And so depending on the circumstances, we need to pivot, but we also need to know that we've got resources who are there to help pick up and set the pieces back where they need to be and fill in where there's not. So that framework really, really helps.
And it's big for us to have to be very foundational, to make sure, like Rick said, we have a lot of different contacts. And so when we're shaking hands on blue sky days, it's helping us tenfold when it comes to those gray sky days, or those bad things happen, to where we can, like Laura mentioned, is being able to share resources to say, hey, we know a guy, or hey, we may know an agency that has that. Let's figure it out. Let's get them rolling this way. And then we already know we have that kind of in our wheelhouse, and we're able to utilize that resource because we've had those handshake agreements and started those conversations long before something takes place. And that is probably 85% of our job, is making sure that we have those connections and that networking. I know both myself, Rick, I know Lauren, Ashley, we can all talk ourselves into about any conversation, but it's a major, powerful tool to be able to communicate effectively, which we all know is extremely important, but to be able to communicate and say, hey, you may have something that can help me, and vice versa. Sure. And how helpful that small conversation can be, to where you may not need it until 4 or 5 years from now, but 4 or 5 years from now, it's going to be crucial for you.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier, you mentioned the word NIMS, National Incident Management System. And it's key for us to understand that there is a very specific word that they use in there that allows us to do this or makes us do it. It's not a may, it's a shall.
Yeah.
And so when they put that into federal law back in the early 2005 through the Stafford Act, they basically said, this is what you shall do. And we shall do certain things throughout our career and throughout our planning process. And there's a whole variety of things that go in with that. And so we pride ourselves every single day to make sure that we're keeping abreast of those things, making sure that we're up to policy on all the things that we do. Just this week, Jenna just been back. She's been working on our basic emergency management plan that's 1,500 pages long. We're going to get back out in front of the practitioners that actually use that daily and say, are we marching to the right order? So is this what you expect out of us? And making sure that we're all coordinating those things. So
Yeah.
And just like Rick mentioned about that plan, it's a document that is very lengthy, but it's lengthy for a lot of different reasons. It's a general guideline for our community and for our responding agencies, to where each particular section of it is utilized as a guideline, as a reference. And I know when you think emergency operations plan, you think that, like you said, it's a checklist. There are plenty of checklists in there, but it's all going to be dependent on an incident or what's taking place, because it may not go 100% by that checklist or exactly what's in that plan. Yeah, you have to be very fluid, very flexible, and be able to adapt to the situation, because, of course, like we hear people say all the time, hurricanes or storms, no two are alike.
Right.
Just like no two emergencies are alike. They're always going to have different nuances, different time of day, different people, different circumstances.
different tactics.
Different tactics, different approaches.
Right.
And so really just another big piece of our job and what we do is maintaining flexibility and being able to know that we have a great knowledge base on whatever it is that's taking place. I like to say that our office, or Rick and I in particular, know a little bit about a lot of things. But what do they call it? A master of none.
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades.
Master of none.
Grab the hat, which one we're going to put on today.
Just you never know. But
you never
knowing
know.
just enough to get yourself in trouble, but not in the sense that we need to be able to step in and take on somebody else's job or their role, because that's not our place.
Right.
But we're there to kind of help them. I know a little bit about what's going on right now. Like, have you thought about this? And if you hate the idea, that's okay. If you like it, I love it. But we're there to just kind of give them those considerations and kind of help them walk through those different pieces. And like we were talking about before, is just fill in those gaps.
Yeah.
And so
Lauren and I do that a lot, actually, because we're both communicators, obviously. And so, because our job is that, not because we're great right now. I'm not trying to go, oh my God, I'm so great. So that's our role. Okay.
Right.
And so when we talk about different responses to different incidents, we're thinking, and we actually feed back a lot of things with each other, bounce them off of each other and say, hey, have you considered this? What do you think about this? What are you seeing out there? What are you hearing out there in the community? Because every, like you said, incident is so different. So how have you seen that play out, Lauren?
Well, I
I'm
think,
just curious.
with some things you're like, okay, this is going to take off. We need to keep a good pulse on this. And then it just flatlines. And then certain other topics, you're like, okay, this is, not a big deal, or it's probably not going to gain any traction. And then that takes off. So you have to shift. But I think keeping a good thumb on what's happening and staying in constant communication with other communications professionals and then your staff goes a long way. It really does help. And then it helps when you have people that trust you and can give you that information for you to craft and put out there to the public too.
For sure. And here's an example of how that played out real quick. So boil water's wow. You said you were going to mess up the words. It's me. Jinxed it. Knock on wood. And this is funny, but not. Boil water. I did it again. Boil water notice number 2. Okay, recently. We're talking July and then August of 2025, in case y'all are listening late. And so when that happened, it was a very different communications response because of the situation at the forefront. It was localized. Even though we had to issue it citywide because TCEQ required it, it was a localized issue.
Sure.
However, our systems are interconnected. So therefore, it's just a basic guideline for TCEQ for us to meet that. And so we had to. Communication looked different, though, because of it. However, the community expected more immediate, quick, and just as elevated as if it were the prior boil water notice response. And so that's an example of how Lauren and I were talking about, like, hey, we're noticing some things. People seem to not quite understand that distinction. Let's go ahead and over-communicate now.
Yep.
We might have missed the boat in the beginning, but we are very much, and I'm going to give my team credit over here too. Sam, even our city manager and council are very aware of that as well. And so we were able to pick up on that because it's part of our job to keep a pulse on what's going on out in the community. And then we pivot, like you said, and we respond accordingly. And we sure did, just have to say.
And I think one of the things that were lend to the fact that we were successful in that secondary notice was every time we have an event or an incident or emergency, we go back and look at the after actions. And we try to identify the things that we have the strengths, and we say, keep going. And if we have some areas up for improvement, we start to focus in on those. And I think we pride ourselves on those all the time. We sit down with those practitioners and say, how do we get better to improve upon what we just now went through? And I think y'all did an outstanding job.
I appreciate that.
Getting to the forefront of that. I mean, because we'd already listened to all those folks that were out there and said, we need to pivot a little bit. So
Right. And that's what it's all about.
And I think it's very important too, that I know is something that you all addressed and were aware of very early on, is that community members are hungry for information. Once you put something on their radar, they're hungry for it. They want to know what's going on. And they know that they want and expect some continuity with their communications, and you all did just that.
Sure.
And I think that's something that we carry on too, is from the communication standpoint. As we know, when something happens, people want information. They want it morning, noon, and night.
Right.
Almost faster than we can give it to them.
Yeah. And we're all the same way. I think, Lauren, I was going to tell you too, that I feel like you gave a perfect communications definition of us having FOMO, or fear of missing out. That we're constantly engaged and constantly keeping a pulse on everything.
Yeah.
We are. I mean, any of us are doing things on a day in and day out basis, and we're like, what? I'm off, but what's going on?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna go back to the tragic incident on July 4th in Kerr County. Like, you talked about how we supported you guys during the boil water notice, but then you guys, of course, supported us during the Kerr County incident. Not that our area was directly affected, but we quickly realized by all of us communicating and keeping a pulse on what was happening that our community was legitimately concerned about us being impacted. So we all pivoted.
Right.
And then you and your staff, as soon as we were putting something out, y'all were sharing what we were putting out. And so it just goes both ways. I mean, the constant communication, the teamwork, it's ever evolving, but also supporting each other.
I think we're really fortunate in our community that we all do seem to work really well together. We're all good at coordinating. We're all able to come together. Egos get checked at the door, and we're all working together and able to say, how can we help each other?
Sure.
Right.
We're crossing not jurisdictional boundaries, but we're crossing into each other's lanes and helping and sharing resources. And it's not, what can you do for me before I share something with you? It's not transactional. We're very just easygoing, coordinating, just like this conversation we're having today.
Yeah.
And I think we're very fortunate in that aspect in our community, because I don't think that that's the same dynamic everywhere.
Just establishing those relationships.
That's a good point.
And are so important.
So important. And we work a lot alongside first responders, right? We may not be putting the water to the fire.
Wet stuff on the red stuff.
Wet stuff on the red stuff. I was like, did I say what Rick usually says?
The wet stuff on the red
We may
stuff.
not be doing that,
Yes.
okay? But we are frontline responding. And, I was participating in a webinar. I was going to talk to y'all about that, 3CMA, in case you're wondering. City County Management Association. Anyway, it's for communicators. And they were talking about Kerr County and the response, and how PIOs themselves, public information officers, are first responders in a sense, because you are seeing firsthand the information, just like an officer, just like a firefighter.
Sure.
Office of Emergency Management officials, coordinators, you get that information firsthand. And then you're trying to spit that back out in an easy to understand way to the community. You're just responding. You're going off of adrenaline, and you're literally laying down your life to respond in this situation, setting aside your personal, whatever it is, needs for the greater good of the community. And so when you're putting that information out, you don't realize the impact of looking at all the facts and the details until later.
Sure.
Just like a first responder kind of does. And so that point was made in the webinar, and it was saying thank you to every area, nurses, hospitals, like every area of first responders out there who are helping, whether it be communication to the broader community or actually isolating the threat.
Sure.
Everything far and few and in between matters. So you guys help do that.
And I think in a sense, the term or the definition of being a first responder, even though we know what we think of when we think of first responders, I tend to think of a first responder as anybody, like you said, is their response has to be instantaneous. They don't have the ability to sit back, regurgitate everything, think about what they're going to do, and really set out this methodical approach. It's based on a lot of instinct. It's based on a lot of training. It's based on a lot of the things that they
Past experiences.
And having to do something that is going to promote the betterment of the community whether it's communication, whether it's coordination, whether it is a true first responding role. But everybody kind of steps into that realm at some point in these spaces. And I think it just kind of depends on like you said, like the incident. And like you said, the communications from things like the tragic things that happened in the Hill Country, communications was paramount. They needed it instantaneously.
Right.
And that was something that couldn't be shared fast enough. I mean, those people were met with a 2-story house, wall of water.
In the middle of the night, too. Right. So how many people had their wire emergency alerts turned on is a question that's come up. All these things. It was along the river, so could they have had a siren over there? All these questions are coming up
The things that have come out
about communications.
The legislative body recently is they really try to start focusing in now on don't blame the person for the mistakes that were made. They were trying to focus in on the processes, the processes that were being used. And so you mentioned about the sirens and some of the things. All that's going to come into play. And there's a lot of things that are coming out of the legislative body right now that are going to help improve camp safety. The safety along the riverbed, especially up in the upper Guadalupe River.
Right.
And for us, it was a little bit different for us on 4th of July. Within 5 or 6 hours, we were already all talking to each other. We had made our first call to Canyon Reservoir to talk about the amount of water that they had received in the upper Guadalupe River. What was our reservoir capacity? How to look up, because our general public wasn't disassociating to a degree the word Guadalupe River. And so they were failing to understand that we have a very large reservoir between us and the upper Guadalupe. And so our immediate call was to them. I think that day was 47% capacity. And we asked, with the amount of rainfall, there were some calculations they could do. And, what percentage would y'all go to? We'd be looking at, the operation of the reservoir itself, the dams, and the dam doors and the release of water. And so we had a good understanding of that within the first couple of hours. And that helped us operationally shift. And then what Lorna mentioned earlier really became an information campaign for us just to try to stay afloat. And we mentioned this earlier, but all of us were being inundated with everything that was occurring through our social media platforms, and it was almost overwhelming for us to keep up with everything that was occurring. So
how did y'all first find out? I'll start with that whole situation because I think we need to sit on it. There was a lot of lessons learned across first responding agencies, even up to, like you mentioned, the state and legislative policies and action that's now underway. And so for us here in Victoria, while we weren't in Kerr County, we were still impacted very much. Those are our neighbors. That's a statewide issue. Yeah, exactly. I actually was on vacation and I remember not having heard anything about it yet. First time I pull up my Facebook feed, I'm scrolling. I see a friend, actually a neighbor, post something about her children having just come back from there and her heart is heavy. From the camp, to be specific. And I thought, well, she's not normally like that. What's going on? And sure enough, didn't take a few more scrolls to start to see the floods.
Yeah.
And then it just got increasingly worse as more and more information was shed to light about what actually was happening. This was literally Texans across the state were just seeing it unfold right along with everyone else, within just a few hours. And so how did you guys learn about it? And then,
well, our district chief, Ernie Paez, which is our counterpart at the Texas Division of Emergency Management, or TDM, had called us earlier that morning, probably about mid-morning, and said, I'm en route to go to Kerrville. They've had some massive flooding that's occurred. And at that point, they still didn't understand the
gravity
of it all. And so, like you were on vacation. My kids were in College Station. They were leaving to go to Junction, and they had called me and said, hey, Dad, we see all the weather going on. I said, well, give me a second. Let me take a look at the weather apps. And sure enough, that's when I really took notice within probably mid-morning. Wow, this storm cell is not moving. It's sitting there circulating over the Central Texas region. And so then with Ernie calling us, that really kind of brought it to light for us. And then probably by midday, noonish, 1 o'clock, we were pretty much monitoring everything that was happening, coordinating with our West Gulf River forecast centers, looking at the Canyon Reservoir, and really kind of just becoming more aware of what was happening. And then by that afternoon on 4th of July, we were all talking, getting our operational plan put into place and saying, okay, what's our next steps for our tactical operations that may need to occur?
Right. No, I remember y'all doing a great job, at least when I started to even see some concern about, well, what does that mean for Victoria and the Guadalupe River coming this way, right? And so you guys were very reassuring about that, saying, hey, no threat here. But if you want to have and contribute to resources in Kerrville, here's what you can do.
Right.
And I loved that.
And
it was the two main messages, at least in Victoria, we needed to hear.
And we definitely didn't want to, as we know, in disasters or in catastrophes in that sense, a lot of misinformation tends to promulgate and start to circulate.
Been there.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
Can't
And
keep up with it.
it's
It's almost overwhelming trying to keep up with it.
it is. It's a crisis on top of a crisis.
Right.
And so we really wanted to make sure that we knew we had a particular platform that we know that people see us. We're an official government source. That if we're pushing information out, it's not misleading. It's not not fact based. And so we made sure to find the proper channel where people could contribute directly to those affected community members, and make sure it was the right information. Make sure that whenever it was being pushed out by those official sources in Kerr County or Kerrville, any of the affected jurisdictions along the Guadalupe, that it was the correct information, so that contribution could go directly to those impacted individuals or those homeowners or businesses or wherever it may go, because I can only imagine the things that they were trying to just corral while they were out there.
The frauds, the scam, all of that was on top of what they were already experiencing. That was devastating. So that was part of our driving force to provide factual information.
I think it's been unique too is I know the state of Texas has its fair share of emergencies, disasters, you name it. I mean, we're a big state, and so people deal with all kinds of things coming from all different directions, just depending on where you're at. I think in the sense of experience and being able to kind of be more, I guess, well-rounded, not that others aren't, but just in our little space of the world, we have a lot of experience, and it's just benefited us from that, but also being on the Gulf Coast has its own set of threats with it.
I actually segue to something. I've learned that I tend to interrupt, so I'm sorry for anyone on this show that I have ever interrupted. You have been victimized by Regina George. Raise your hand. Jenna's doing it now, so I was just kidding. I was going to say, but speaking of the incidents that we have here, and did you say the coast, right? Kind of ish. We were here to talk about hurricane season, and I thought this might be a good time for you and Rick and Lauren to talk about y'all's hurricane preparedness guide. We're going to put it back on the screen. Cue Sam. And I really feel like this is a great way to kind of let's sit on this topic for a minute, because A, we're in the middle of hurricane season, but B, Rick, you say it so well and you always tell this story, and I would love for you to kind of share that today of what happened in Hurricane Harvey here in Victoria, what people thought it was, what it ended up really being, and what people still think it was, but it was not. So bring the facts.
I'll do as fast as I can to do,
Fast? What? Rick?
as fast as I can to bring a synopsis to the
very fast.
to it. So, yes, obviously we live in a tropical region, so our return rate for any major category hurricane, which is a category 3 or higher, is about once every 10 years. The last major hurricane our affected area saw, our direct area, was 1961 with Hurricane Carla. And so oftentimes we go out to presentations throughout the year. We probably do anywhere from a dozen to 18 or so presentations throughout the year related to hurricanes. And oftentimes we hear from our public saying, well, I'm okay. I wrote out category 4 Hurricane Harvey in 2017. And then we immediately ask, well, where was your location? Where were you at? And so I think it's important for people to understand that Harvey brought some very unique things to us. It was the fastest rapidly intensifying storm ever recorded on record at 36 hours from a tropical storm, all the way up to a category 4 hurricane. And so it's kind of like stepping in the batter's box. All of a sudden you're there and the pitch is coming at you. You have to react very quickly. But we have to be mindful for the fact that as we prepared for category 4 Hurricane Harvey, as it rapidly intensified throughout that Thursday and Friday evening, is that our partners to the south, Rockport area, really took on the brunt of a category 4 hurricane. What we saw here in Victoria was the wind load environment of a category 1. There were some pocketed areas with a category 2 wind load, the Barge Canal of our western side of our community. But we have to put that in perspective for ourselves, because we don't want people to have a false sense of complacency to say, well, I wrote out category 4 Hurricane Harvey.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
You didn't.
Well, it was very much
Here in Victoria,
similar to Claudette in 2003, which was also category 1. And we had a significant more impact from Hurricane Harvey because it was kind of like that relative at Thanksgiving. It just didn't want to go home. It came in and went across into B County, Karnes County, swam back around and came back through. And so the wind load shifted on us quite a bit for over 3 or 4 days and a lot of rain. But it is important for us to understand the historic nature of the last major hurricane we had was in 1961. And so we don't allow we don't want our public to become complacent.
Mm.
And then also understand their life impacts. Where are they at now in life compared to the last time they went through a storm? Going back just in the last 20 years, Hurricane Katrina in 2005, it was the first time we saw social media and the media platform really showcasing what was going on in New Orleans and Louisiana itself.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly thereafter, we had Hurricane Rita. What happened to the state of Texas during Hurricane Rita? Everybody evacuated. Everybody had a very knee-jerk reaction because it was all of a sudden in our face in every aspect that we could see it in. Hurricane Ike in 2008, we see the destruction in Galveston and on the peninsula. And so we have to learn from those lessons and tell ourselves we can't become complacent. As hurricane season comes on, we need to be prepared for it. And our message to the residents is always, the more prepared you are, the more resilient you're going to be, because you're going to respond better. And that's what we're looking for. And so we try to inform people about, making sure they have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
They're staying informed, and I'll let them kind of pick up on those.
Yeah.
And then also building a kit and understanding those different threats. And so then these things can, just like Hurricane Harvey, present itself in a very unique time frame to where it's rapidly intensifying, and we have to make decisions right then and there. And so don't become complacent.
Absolutely. Go back to that little puppy. What was that? A little pug puppy looking thing. Oh, there he is.
Go bag.
Create a go bag. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, no, we just think it's super important for people to always be prepared, whether that's food that you can take with you. Don't forget about your pets. Do you have food for your pets? Somewhere for them to sleep? Just one blank.
Snacks.
Medications, doctors.
I'm ready to ask.
I did
It's
use
just
it.
important to be prepared, but to be prepared, you also need to stay connected.
Yeah.
Right. And always be mindful of the pages you're following, who's sensationalizing the stories, and where you're getting your information from. And so, always be mindful of that too. But being prepared, having your items ready to go. What are you going to do with your kids? Are you going to be stuck in traffic? If you're going to be stuck in traffic, what are your kids going to do in traffic while you're sitting there? Thinking all of that, and just having a bag already ready to roll out the door if you do have to leave is the best way to go. It's kind of like having a kid and your diaper bag's always ready to go.
Kind of do that every day.
You have your I'm not in the diaper bag area anymore. Past that.
Still there. No, just
But I think we're all familiar. We always have our purser. We always have our wallet. We always have those little things ready to go out the door. Why not do that with your preparedness kit? Why not have that ready to go? That way it's an easy grab and go. And you're going to be stressed out about other things, your other family members, what route you're going to take. Does your car have gas? Why not make things
I
simpler?
needs to move myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Think of it, how can you make things simpler for yourself as you're leaving the area?
Well, I think
If
you
you
all
have
had
to
said
leave.
it once too, was come up with a family reunification plan.
Mm-hmm.
Where is a central spot we can go? Like if a hurricane's coming, we're not discussing where are we all going to meet up, what hotel or what family member's house are we going to stay at? The location, maybe even right next to a grocery store, right? Someone had told me that.
Right.
So that way you can get your supplies easily, and wherever it ends up being, you have that predetermined in your mind. You're that much ready to pack your bag. Well, not pack it, get it, and then go.
Yep.
And you know where you're going.
And we have... Go ahead, I'm sorry. No, you go.
Age before beauty.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, fine. But to add to what they were mentioning about not becoming complacent, making sure that you have a plan and things in place. There was even something that happened last year that didn't really impact the Victoria area. Hurricane Beryl. That most people here, I know my husband was outside boarding up windows. He was helping neighbors. He was doing all the things.
Yep.
And that was because that was what we were expecting here in Victoria. And as soon as it crossed that last coastal shelf, it decided to move
A little to the...
towards
A little
the
bit.
border.
What was it like?
16 miles.
16 miles.
Just a few miles
Say
to the right.
yeah.
Kept
Of
being on
us.
his ease.
And we were all sitting in the EOC at midnight.
I
They
know.
send a weather person down to house with us, and we're sleeping in the EOC, and we're all watching it. We're like, what is this thing gonna do?
Yep.
Right.
Because it could have gone either way. It could have landed straight on us. It shouldn't have turned. And
And
it's
it
sorry,
shouldn't.
I didn't mean to interject.
No, that's fine. That's what we do here. That's okay.
Apparently, I set the standard.
No, we do it on a daily basis.
Yeah, I love it.
But to get back to that about the complacency
Yeah.
is how many people I saw just as either personal friends or things that had been shared on social media following that. They were in the Victoria or the Crossroads region that didn't see any impacts. And things from just, I knew it wasn't going to happen. See, y'all were all listening to these official sources and nothing happened. And you did all of this to prepare. Now, I'm staying for the next one. please don't.
Complacency sets in.
There
right.
is no amount of any benefit that anybody in a capacity in emergency management or a policymaker that makes a decision to do anything that changes the way of life for people. There is no positive personal gain out of it. It is a major undertaking and a major decision with so many considerations in place. That if there is ever something that our policymakers make a very tough decision to say, we need you to either voluntarily or mandatory evacuate, there's a lot of conscious thought and effort that goes behind that.
To be clear, what was it for Hurricane Beryl?
Nothing. We didn't have any evacuations, but we definitely were pushing the message for people to be prepared.
Right.
Because those impacts are going to be devastating no matter what.
Yeah.
And I say that because my parents lived in Missouri City, in the Sugarland, Houston area, during Hurricane Beryl. Now they're Victorianites. Or is it Victorianites?
Victorians.
Whatever you want to call it. V-Town.
Yes. But at the time, lived in Missouri City. V-Town, yeah. I have to get them spun up on that. But they were in Missouri City at the time. And so I was still at work because we were still in the EOC. But shortly after, the impacts were felt from Matagorda as it moved into the suburban Houston area and into the Houston area. Definitely the Fort Bend County area. My husband then, because I was still at work, went to go check on my parents. And when he did, he said, along 59 North, there are no lights. Those major light poles that would regularly be up, lighting the town up from sun up to sundown 24 hours a day, they're not there. There were major trees that had been knocked over, just things that only you could imagine from a bigger storm, because everybody was saying, oh, it's just tropical storm.
Right.
There is no just a tropical storm, because we went and saw the debris impacts after Hurricane Beryl.
Do you think that might be what it is, tripping people up from leaving, is they don't recognize or haven't seen the debris impacts and the dangers? What is that?
Another thing that people get kind of hung up on is that they're waiting for officials to tell them to leave, because it's also work related. When I was tracking the comments and stuff online, they were like, well, if they don't tell me to leave, then I won't get paid. And there's people are taking that into effect too, or into consideration, that what's best for their personal situation.
Yeah.
So until it's, quote, mandatory or strong, we can strongly encourage people all day long, but until it's mandatory, they have to sit on it and figure out what's best for their family, their situation. So it's a fine balance.
I want to go back to the word complacency. I know I said it earlier, and something that Jen and I hone in on when we give our presentations is that when we have a generation of people, or just ourselves, haven't gone through an event, I can ask a question to you. When was the last time you checked your spare tire? I can ask that to you and your staff. Exactly. Because you're not going to check it until you need it.
Right.
Or you had somebody that's extremely close to you that's had to need it recently, and then you're going to say to yourself, oh, I need to go check my spare tire.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that we see. And as we go through a period of time where we don't have an event, or we have a near miss like Hurricane Beryl that's by 16 to 20 miles, we become complacent and we say, well, I don't have to deal with that right now. And I think that's one of the most dangerous things we can do to add on to that. And this is not about complacency, but in 2020, which was the most active season ever in hurricanes, we went into the Greek alphabet. And
then they retired the Greek alphabet.
And then they retired the Greek alphabet. Well, they didn't retire the Greek alphabet. They just retired the naming.
They changed it.
Yeah.
They don't want to use the Greek alphabet.
But in 2020 was the most active season ever recorded, ever. And nobody remembers that, because what were we doing in 2020?
COVID.
We were doing COVID. And the messaging we were sending out to people was stay home, stay safe.
Right.
And so Hurricane Harvey in 2017, COVID in 2020, we then have a little situation with Hurricane Beryl, which is in 2024. And we have a near miss with that. So complacency is going to sit into a degree, but we need to remind ourselves that we have to be prepared. We've got to make sure that we're ready to go for tropical season, hurricane season, whether it's to shelter in place and have a kit, or shelter or get ready to evacuate and have a kit to go.
Right.
And we have to look at those various risk factors associated to those things and make sure that we're ready to go.
And I think the individuals that are kind of in that scope of maybe being impacted by something, the potential, like a Hurricane Beryl or anything else in between, is knowing what your particular, I think Rick kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, is knowing what your particular circumstances are.
Sure.
Do you have things in place to be able to evacuate? And if you don't, what are those circumstances looking like for you, and how are you going to be able to plan accordingly for it? Because we know there's nothing that is super fun about creating a go bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in essence, it sounds really great. But then Rick says it's really fun. But we know, I mean, it's a cost. There's a cost associated to it. It's gathering supplies that
For sure.
may or may not be used. Obviously, there are things that you may use on a day in and day out basis, but who genuinely thinks about putting aside this money that I'm going to use for my hurricane cash or my storm cash, or making sure that I have an extra 7 to 10 days worth of pet food or my medications, because we're usually, your refills are due up for your medications at certain times, and you don't just have 7 to 10 days to expend.
Right.
And really trying to think outside of the box. Not to you don't have to go to the extreme of being a doomsday prepper. And if you are,
I was just going to say that. 7 to 10 days worth is pretty manageable. It's not overwhelming. It's not doomsday prepper.
we're not stockpiling, but it's an extra consideration that where if you're a parent and you have kids that are going to school, or you have a household to run, you have a business to run, you have work to go to 5 days a week or more, really thinking about those things that are outside of that box and kind of having those on hand. But it's a conscious effort to be made, but it's a great one because it sets you that much further to being successful and being resilient. And I mention that a lot, and I know all of us kind of mention that, is that for our community to become resilient, our community members have to be resilient. We can tell you whatever it is that we can to tell you to create a go bag and have some supplies on hand to be prepared, and to make sure that you're getting the messaging that you should be from official sources, and making sure that you have a plan of what you're going to do. But it's up to the community members to do that. They're our strongest resource. If our community isn't resilient, neither are we.
Can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it.
Absolutely. And I would love that if they drink the water.
Yeah, drink your water for real. I want to end on this note. City Alert Center versus Code Red.
Yes.
Go. What's the difference? I can tell you, but I'd rather, you know what, let's toss it over to Lauren.
So the city alert stuff is specifically for the city.
She's speaking for the city.
My name's
Just
Lauren.
happening.
I'm here. My name's Lauren. So the city alert center is great if you're looking for regular updates, if your trash is delayed, or if there is a boil water notice. But they also, I know you'll also post out emergencies as well. Code Red to a degree, right?
Yeah. I mean, we'll share y'all's information if it's, I mean, it depends on what you consider an emergency. So that's actually something we should define. So locally, if you're in city limits, the City Alert Center is where it's at. You want to subscribe to those. If you're a water customer, we already have your account information that you have on hand with the account holder with the utility billing office. But if you're not, we encourage you to sign up, victoriatx.gov/alerts. And Lauren over here doesn't live in the city limits, but she still can. So AKA you, if you're listening or watching, if you live outside of city limits, you can subscribe. If you want to still be generally aware, right? Like maybe your route is leading into Victoria city limits and you want to be aware ahead of time of road closures. You can sign up for that. Like you said, trash pickup changes and schedule route changes. Boil water notices, God forbid, but that happens. Or other water account system updates, water main breaks, whatever it is. But also there's optional breaking news items too, if you generally want to know what's going on in Victoria. So that's what we provide. Non-emergency weather updates maybe. We might share some of that, although we are not the National Weather Service. I do like to make that distinction. Neither are you guys.
Either. Right.
Neither are y'all. But yet sometimes people like that. If they already are familiar getting some of the basic stuff from us, they're like, well, can you send us that too? Sometimes we will if it rises to the higher level. But at the end of the day, there is a distinction between the city's alert center for your day-to-day account information inside city limits and Code Red,
which people can sign up with Code Red by just simply texting Victoria Alert or Alert Victoria 99411.
And that is for emergencies.
That is for emergencies. It's
like a hurricane.
Hurricanes, or if there's another critical incident happening that activates us, we would use that platform to push out information.
Right.
Along with our social mediums, just like you guys. But yeah, Code Red, if you have not signed up, you need to sign up to get the alert. There is a workaround if there is a National Weather Service emergency coming through that they can push through Code Red as well. So yes, emergency Code Red. That's how you can best define it.
Yeah.
If stuff's going down, you are going to want to be on that app and understand what's going on. Emergency stuff, or excuse me, day-to-day activities, City of Victoria Alert Center. So
there you go.
And then we have another one you need to add into that.
Oh,
so
gosh. I'm just kidding.
on our notifications on our smartphone, it's required by law that there's a thing called wireless emergency alerts. I think you mentioned this earlier in the podcast. And so we want to remind folks to go in there. And oftentimes we get, I use the word complacent. We get complacent because we see alerts coming in at 2 o'clock in the morning that are not associated
Yeah.
to something we want to know about. And so we go in and we turn those tabs off. And when we turn all those tabs off, that doesn't allow us to actively engage when there is an emergency alert coming in from the source officials like National Weather Service out of Corpus Christi or anywhere else that we have a tornado warning over a watch because it's now getting ready to happen, or a flood warning that may be occurring, that we want to definitely make sure that people have those turned on. So go into your notification setting,
Yeah.
look at those things and choose the appropriate measures to say, this is what I want.
I'm pretty sure it's if you open up your settings, go to general, scroll all the way down.
Yes.
Like you have to scroll past all your apps.
Yeah.
And at the very bottom, it's alerts. And you click on that, something like that. And then you click
Several
on that
there.
and you'll see Amber alerts and then emergency alerts. Make sure they're both toggles are on.
Yes.
Well, and I think there's a lot of people that don't even realize that that's toggled off, right? We have a generation that's not very familiar with phones. We have another generation that's very familiar with
And they will
phones.
turn it off.
And they turn it off. Our
Mhm.
communications intern said, my generation's turning that off.
Yeah.
And so when this older generation doesn't know how to work through that phone, they're like, hey, fix my phone. I think it's getting turned off and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
So go check your settings.
And
go
there's
look at it.
Specific legislation, and I feel like I'm looking over the right camera, and I hope that I am so you can see my eyes. Do this. Add the dramatics. There was specific legislation that has now separated the fun Amber alerts that come across and emergency alerts. So if you're looking at me in my eyes, if you don't want the Amber alerts because they may be across the entire state of Texas and you don't want to be woken up at 2:30 in the morning, but you definitely should want the emergency alerts, because if there is a wireless emergency alert, or what we call WIA, coming across from the National Weather Service, it is something that you would want to pay attention to. It means that something is happening in your specific geographic area based on where your cell phone is pinging off of towers.
I was about to say, because it's
Life-
geo-centered.
life
It is a life safety risk for you, and you need that
Right.
message.
And really only emergency alerts will go out in those hours. For example, our city alert center, we might have accidentally done it once, okay? That was an accident. We are very sorry about that. We have corrected it since. But really, we're going to prioritize putting messages out 8 a.m. and hopefully by 5 p.m. because we realize that is your family time.
Yep.
And we, unless we absolutely have to, will not go beyond that. Boil water notice was an exception because we didn't get TCEQs, rescindents of the boil water notice, until in the evening. It just happened that way.
Right.
Most of the time we're working to resolve it during the day. So when we get our updates, we will notify you guys, but don't be afraid to sign up for these things.
Right.
Either A, it's life-saving, it's an emergency, or B, it's general day-to-day and it can impact your schedule, your routine, and your general whereabouts. So sign up for both. Again, victoriatx.gov/alerts or text.
You can text Alert Victoria at 99411.
Is it?
Why are you looking at me like that?
Is it?
Did I get that wrong?
Sam, AJ, fact check us.
Did I get it wrong?
Well, while you're doing that, we've spent
There's a
a
number.
good amount of time talking. This has been
Well, we should
great.
get
We
to
should make like a part 2 because I still haven't heard all the emergencies that I know you have up your sleeve, Rick.
Quite a few.
But
Because he's old.
I just want to thank you guys again,
Thank you for having us.
gals,
thank you for having
guys,
us.
for being on here. It's always great having y'all here. I definitely think we need to do it again because there's always so much to talk about.
We'll drag Rick along, too.
Because look, there's another one we didn't talk about was the plane crash. So
All kinds of
I
things.
know.
Part 2.
All kinds of
Part
stuff
2.
to talk about.
We'll come back
Now
to
I'm
it.
really
And
doubting my
scene.
phone number.
I don't know.
you know what we're going to do in post? We're going to put the slide up here because I know y'all have a promo code.
If you go to vctx.org/hurricane, it's all on there.
It's been a day. It's in our emergency and hurricane preparedness guide at bctx.org/hurricane. Check there.
promo reel.
The number's there somewhere.
Well, thank y'all
Having
again, and we'll talk to you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Town Talk. Check out future episodes at victoriatx.gov/Town Talk, or of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Spotify account. Make sure you hit that notification button to be sure that you get alerted instantly when our new episodes debut. You don't want to get behind, you want to stay informed, so make sure you do that. We appreciate your support, couldn't do it without you. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time.